patriotics. But the difference in national second ago. So you see, urges, if you 1620, me is 1.6, that means you higher.
It's archaeology. The next, we find, a problem. Guess where we have another rectangular plan that is obviously pre-Pagan. We have it at Halin. So that argument about rectangular plans falls apart immediately. And the next. Now the Thakya pagoda, the famous Jataka tiles. The next. This is at Thailand. This is a pre-restoration Jatakas, the Mahanipaka. The next. Now the order of these Jatakas, both in an inscription known as the Pandit inscription that we'll see in a minute, the order of these Jatakas conform, the Buridata at Thathom conforms to those at Paitli. These are the same. The next. And these are just give you the range of sculpture that's found. And you can see that it has little stuff to do with Pagan, but not quite. You'd never suspect this to be a Pagan sculpture. And the next. And the Hindu images Pam Gutman will be speaking about, so I'll let her treat those. But other evidence in the first millennium or the early second millennium to convince us that Thathom was an important place. And the next, this is at the Sima. This is the paleography. This is drawn from Luce, the circa 1050. And the next, and this is the Thathom Rodown, the Pandit inscription, which is also dated paleographically by Luce to 1050. And the next, and a similar motif here, similar motif there, which is 1050 or even 11th or 12th century. It proves that Mon, it's an inscription in Mon and Pali, it proves that Mon were in this area. Otherwise, we have no Pew inscriptions. Well, looking for a good analysis of this inscription, this is the early one. This is Kalyani, 1480s. We come to Mist, the next. So the stones at Thathom were written partly in Old Mon. Okay. So basically, this sums up the next. The next. So simply put, the Thathom, no, go back to the other one. Simply put, the inscriptions could be 11th or 15th century. And when we go to Shorto, etc., so then we go to the next, and when we come to Shorto in his dictionary, there is nothing said about the script, nor about the linguistic change that he says does not occur. In fact, it's just the opposite. So that this endnote really, rather than answer things, rather obscures what he's saying. So it takes looking through and to think as a historian that there is no linguistic or epigraphic or orthographic shift in 5 centuries, that's unsophisticated. At least to my mind, it was unsophisticated. And the next. And then when we come to Twante in the Delta, we've gone the southeast, the next one, we come to this enormous stupa, which I encourage you to visit. It's near Twante to the east. And at this register, there were a series of enormous Aniruddha plaques, one of which Emmanuel illustrates in color. So we know with plaques here, it's laterite, it's laterite face. We know that this building, something this large, where is it? It's not at Pagan, it's in the Delta. So this implies a tremendous archaeological, architectural activity in the Delta. And so, is it mentioned in this? No, nothing about this is mentioned. And the next, and so we come to the role of the Pew at Pagan. Why are there no, apart from the Yazidi inscription, why are there no more Pew inscriptions of note? Think about it. Whereas we have thousands, if not hundreds, of Mon inscriptions, and then, or post-Pagan. In other words, all the Pew sources are much, much later at Trichenko, so therefore could never be the model. And the next, for these arches, it's not the same. Not at all the same. And the next, I'll just whiz through it. And now at the Piglik temples, with these jatikas that you all know, this is 547, and in the 19th century. Okay. If he wants to, if he's desperate to maintain that these are 19th century inscriptions, think about that for one moment. You can tweet, stop with tweeting, don't worry. Think of it. It's just grossly unsophisticated. And the next. And then where did the Jatikas come from if they didn't come from the Mon? And now another tremendous leap of faith, of tremendous naivete, is he says, well, the Jatikas probably arrived well before the Pagan period, and cites this example, well-known example from Sri Kshetra, a single terracotta plaque, identified by Duracell ages ago as a Jatika, debunked by Luce as not a Jatika, and there's nothing in Pew art apart from this, which is even vague. I'm just shocked at the level of unsophistication. And the next, and so when we come back to, is it the Pew millennia? There were Pew. Is it Mon? Yes, it was also. And the next. But there were numerous sources. It's far too unsophisticated to think of. Anyway, thank you very much. I'm sorry for going.
Well, thank you, Don, for that very stimulating start to our conference, and I hope it will set the tone for our future discussions on the first millennium at least. Because we're running slightly over time, I think we'll leave questions till the end of the session, and although I'm sure a lot of you would love to start asking Don a lot of questions right now, and I'll ask Elizabeth Moore to present her paper on the early Buddhist archaeology of Myanmar, the lineage of place. Of course, we're all very familiar with Elizabeth's work, and particularly her very recent outstanding book on the changing landscapes of Myanmar. So thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Look at what Donald did. He says, I might take the mic over here and see how I do with pointing from here. And then I end up turning her. And I would like instead to move to looking at different regions, and in fact doing away with the borders of those regions. So we have the first one in the north, which is the Shuili River going up to Yunnan, where we have the Shan Plateau links, and we have Tagong and Halin, and mostly within the resource links, looking at silver, gold, and salt as being some of the prime commodities within the first millennium AD. Within the central zone, the central Ayawadi, the rice, Wadi, Thai-mon, Thiriketia, Baekthano, all of the main cities that have been excavated, where we have cotton, clay, Indian chalk in amazing quantities, also wood, and abundant Burmese precious, mostly chalcedony stones, the carnelians, the green quartzes. And then, which I had a rather awkward time in drawing in here, the coast, from Rakhine, Danyawadi, Waitali, logical cultures, and puts them into simple homogeneous groups. And instead, we can actually look at what people were using, the commodities he was trading, the reason these sites came into being. And in that chronology, we need the north and we need the south, because without them, we don't have a center. The lower Myanmar sites become a ballast for the center, without Tagong bringing things down from Yunnan, without all of the coastal sites. And in that, we need all of the ecologies. I take